All right, recording. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for class 2 of the Kitchen Guild. This is Olivia.
Hey guys, and this is Allison.
Hey everyone, we are so excited you're back. Today we are going to make an around the world flatbread. So we are going to make some dough, let it sit, explore our spice rack, look at different combinations of different flavor profiles, and then we're going to choose the one that we like and put it on our flatbread for an afternoon snack. Awesome. So before we start anything, we want to let you know that we're using an oven today. So you will need parent supervision or clear permission to use the oven. So please, if you don't, maybe hold on to this video for a later time when you can do it with a parent or an adult, so everyone stays safe in the kitchen. And once that's all good and you've got a parent with you here, how about both of you guys pause and go wash your hands? So I am in the middle of Passover now and we're filming this, so I'm going to talk Olivia through this recipe. So we are going to start with 2 cups of flour.
So you guys can't see it, but I'm measuring my flour out right now. You want to make sure that you get it all level. See how I don't have like a little mound on top? So you get good ingredient measurements and you don't have something that's too dry. I've got my 2 cups of flour. Now what's next, Allison?
Next up is we are going to add in 1 teaspoon of salt.
Alrighty. Let's see if my teaspoon can fit through here. Okay, I got my teaspoon of salt. Now what do I need now?
Awesome. So next is 1 teaspoon of baking powder.
Okay. Now guys, what should I do if I don't have baking powder?
Good question. So I've made tortillas at home before, and sometimes I don't have baking powder on hand, and it's okay. Check and see if you have baking soda. It's a little different, but it can still work in the same way for this kind of a recipe.
Awesome.
So the last 2 things, Liv, are 1 cup of warm water, and then also 1.5 tablespoons of oil.
Alrighty. I'm going to add my oil first, and then I'm going to slowly add in my warm water so that it doesn't get too soupy too fast. So guys, I'm using olive oil in this spot, but honestly, I've found that a lot of different oils can work just as well.
Yep, whatever you have on hand in your kitchen is going to work perfectly. One note about the water. So if it's warm, it just kind of helps it all come together when you're making a dough. So if you can turn your water to a little warm, that's great. And if not, no big deal.
Now, how much water did I need again, Allison?
One cup.
Awesome.
And so Liv is making this recipe based on 2 cups of flour. You can double it. If you double it, you double everything on the list. You can also half it, just depending on how much ingredients you have. If you have gluten-free all-purpose flour, that would work just as well. It is really what you're making of it. So if you just want it for a little snack, maybe you do a smaller amount. If you want to share it with a few people, you go bigger. It's totally up to you, and it's going to be great either way.
I think next time I make this, Allison, I'll double it, depending on how popular it is with my family. So everybody, you can't really see it right now, but once it's nice and mixed, I'll show it to the camera. I just slowly add it into my water. I have this little spatula spoon thing that I'm using to mix everything together. If you guys have ever made tortillas before, it's going to kind of be like making tortillas. Now, if you guys see here, I've mixed everything. It looks a little watery to me, so I'm going to add just a little more flour. My dog just sneezed. I don't know if you guys heard that.
It's in tight.
So I'm going to mix in my extra flour. And yeah, now my consistency is turning out a lot better. And as I'm mixing, I'm thinking about what fun spices I have in my spice cabinet, because so far in this, all I have is salt. That's just a very basic flavor. Now, my favorite spices family is probably Italian spices. You've got stuff like fennel and rosemary and oregano, just the best. What are your favorite kinds of spices, Allison?
Ooh, it's hard to say. 'Cause sometimes I love Mexican taco flavors with cumin. Sometimes I love Italian. It really just depends on the mood. We're going to, after Olivia's done making this dough, we're going to let it rest for about a half hour. So we'll set our timers to 30 minutes and we will do a little spice rack investigation activity where we can see some different flavor combinations, see what we have on hand, smell, taste, get familiar, and then choose what we want to add to our flatbread.
All right, everybody. So mine is looking really great right now. It's a nice solid dough. I've got my little dish towel right here. You guys can also use a paper towel if you'd like. I'm going to cover this and I'm going to hand it off to Allison with the spices. Alrighty, everybody. Behind me, my dough's resting. It's going to sit there for about 30 minutes. Allison and I found some fun spice groupings, some flavor profiles for you guys to pick and choose between. Now, know that it doesn't really matter if you don't have all the spices that we're going to talk about today. Just pick whatever sounds good to you or whatever you have in your pantry.
Yeah, so if you visit the activity guide, you'll see a link to a collection of different spice combinations, and we found these and we thought they would be perfect to share with everyone. They're from different flavor profiles and cultures, and some of them might be familiar or unfamiliar to you, but I think you'll be surprised on what lives in your spice rack and what combinations you can find. So Liv and I both pulled down a bunch of spices, looked over our lists. Olivia, do you want to talk about one of the combos that you were able to pull from?
Sure. So as always, I love Italian spice, so of course I had to find that spice profile. So I grabbed out some rosemary, some fennel, which you'll find in Italian sausage, my favorite, some oregano, some curly parsley, which I actually got from my herb garden the other day, some garlic, a big fan of it, and then thyme. What'd you grab?
Yeah, so I started with Cajun, so that is sea salt and pepper and some garlic powder. We have smoked paprika, which tastes a little different than normal paprika, a little smokier. And we have oregano here and some thyme and some cayenne. And so I didn't have any onion powder at my house, which you may find that you're missing a couple of yours, and it's no big deal. Those are just enhancers. Yeah, so it's kind of fun just seeing what all's in there. Did you do any other kind of combos, Liv?
I did. I grabbed some chipotle chili powder, some onion powder, also some smoked paprika, some cayenne, and some cumin to form a bit of like a chili spice, which you would find on like tacos, in Tex-Mex food, and your fajitas.
Awesome. Yeah, and the same Southwest and the taco seasoning. Paprika, cumin, if you have oregano and cayenne pepper, all of those are really a delicious base for those flavors we have in taco night at our house.
Awesome. Now, Allison, I noticed we had a lot of the same spices going on in our totally different flavor profiles. I've had Italian food, I've had Cajun food. They taste nothing alike. So how is it that like the oregano is the same in both?
Yeah, well, I think just across the world, these seeds and herbs and plants grow in different areas, and people have always chosen what's around them to create the food that they're, that pleases their palates and goes with what they want to eat. So I think it's really interesting to see all of the overlap from across the world of things that we all share. I know you'll find like bay leaves in a lot of things, and that's a leaf. We have sesame seeds and cinnamon sticks for things that are sweet and savory. So All of these ingredients come in different forms, and people have just found how to dry them out and add them to add some flavor to their meals.
Awesome. Now that you've taken a peek through your spice rack, Allison, what do you think you're going to add to your flatbread?
That is a good question. So I think that if I were making a flatbread, I would probably do the Cajun and have a Cajun flatbread. Sounds good.
Yes.
How about you?
I think I'm going to go with my Italian seasoning. Guilty pleasure of mine. It's just so good. I think I'm also going to add a little cheese in there, which is a big favorite of mine. Just cheese and bread is my favorite combination.
Nice. So yeah, you will take some time now and go through your spice rack, look at what combinations you can find. Once you've done that and you've kind of picked your flavor set, we encourage you to visit the activity guide. We've made up a few other different activities to do with the spice rack. For example, start organizing them. If there are ingredients that are familiar to you or smells that are really familiar to you, like oregano, start making piles of those. And maybe there are things like Olivia mentioned fennel. Maybe that's a smell that you can't quite place. Maybe put that in the new pile. So have a different category for new smells and familiar smells. Once you've done that, you can try another one. So you can do piles of things that are seeds, like sesame seeds, or herbs like oregano. You can try to organize them in those categories. You may have to look on the internet and learn a bit more about some that are in the mystery piles that you're not sure of. What are some other ways, Olivia, that we could organize or categorize our different spices here?
Well, I'm always a fan of like sweet and savory because I know that I have a lot of like Italian spices, a lot of spicy things in my spice rack, but I also have really awesome stuff like cinnamon and nutmeg and cloves and allspice that I absolutely love, and I put those in stuff like my Thanksgiving pumpkin and apple pies and my little tarts, or sometimes I'll make cookies and I'll put lots of cinnamon in those.
Awesome. Yeah. So try sweet and savory. Think about maybe your holiday categories, things that remind you of Christmas or remind you of Thanksgiving or your birthday, maybe. Just try a couple different categories. When we all meet back at the end of class, we can talk about some unique and creative categories we came up with our spices.
Alrighty, everybody. I'm going to take you through the rest of this recipe. Our dough has risen now for 30 minutes. We already picked out our spices. I went with the Italian, oregano, garlic, rosemary, and thyme. I just preheated my oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, make sure that you guys have a little cutting board or something to put on your counter. Dust it with some flour, and then I'm going to take my dough and just scoop it out onto here. Bloop. Okay, so now I've got my dough, nice covered in flour. It's in a relatively flat blob at the moment. Now what we're gonna do is I've got my rolling pin right down here. And if you guys don't have a rolling pin, feel free to just use your hands. It'll work just the same. I'm gonna grab some more flour, use it to coat my rolling pin so everything doesn't stick to it, because that'll be fun to get off. So I'm gonna roll it nice and flat. Alrighty, so if you guys can see, my dough is about a centimeter-ish thick, which is perfect. That's what I want. Now I'm gonna transfer it over to my parchment-lined baking sheet. Alrighty, everybody, so I've finally transferred from the cutting board onto the parchment paper, and I gave it a few extra rolls because it got a little smushed up in the transfer process. I used a big flat spatula to help me. I recommend you guys do the same. If not, it's a little hard to do. So now that I've got this here, I am going to put just a little bit more olive oil. So I did a round teaspoon of olive oil on there. You guys can measure it out or just sort of dump it like me, and I'm just going to spread this around with my hands. So there's a nice little coating on top. This gives it a little bit of a crispier crust when you pull it out of the oven, and trust me, it is so worth it. It is delicious. I'm going to go wash my hands, and then we're going to put on the rest of the spices. Alright, so I've got my oregano. Now this one, you'll notice, doesn't have the punctured lid. So I'm going to nicely and gently just tap it as I go around my little flatbread to make sure that I don't dump it all out at once. Alrighty. Now I got a good amount of oregano in there. I'm going to go for a bit of garlic. This one does have that little punctured hole, but I'm still going to be really careful and just lightly shake it out so I don't get too much garlic. Because garlic's one of those spices that can be very easily overpowering. It's a really strong spice. And I'm going to go in next with my rosemary. Now this one, I'm not super shy to add a little more, mainly because I love rosemary. It's one of my favorite herbs. And finally, I'm going to go in with some thyme. I'm going to do this one lightly as well because this one can overpower you really easily. And actually I lied. Finally, I'm going to go in with a little bit of sea salt. Wrong lid, I want the one with the punctures. And just a little bit to dust. I'm going to pop this in the oven and we're going to see how it turns out. Alrighty guys, I just pulled my flatbread out of the oven. It was in there for about 20 minutes at 375 Fahrenheit. Here it is. I'm so happy with how it turned out. It passed the little fork test, which means I stuck a fork through the center and it came out clean. No gooey bits on it at all, which means it's perfectly baked through. I am so excited to try it, but first I'm going to wait around 5 to 10 minutes so it can properly cool down so it doesn't burn my tongue. Thank you so much to Seth Segovia of the Neon Exchange in Gilroy, California, my hometown, for giving us this recipe. It is so amazing and I am so excited to share it with all of you.